We got some pretty cool materials we're working with today. This is some Damascus that I got from Damaworks, and this is actually Damascus made from the main gun barrel on a Leopard tank. I'm going to be putting these stabilized dyed maple burl scales on this knife once I get it forged out. All right, so I'm going to fire up the forge. We can make a knife. All right, that's our first heat. I got the billet back in the forge, and I like to run my Damascus, whether it's Damascus that I made or it's Damascus that I get from somebody else. Anytime I'm forging a blade, especially where I have to profile the blade, where I set it up on its end and then I'm applying force with the press or with a hammer to the edge of the blade. That's just sort of a recipe for disaster with if you have little cold shuts around the perimeter of the blade, and then you start applying a massive force, you can get those to actually spread into the billet. So I tend to run my Damascus up between like 1900 and 2000 degrees Fahrenheit in between heats. And that tends to prevent that from happening. So I don't know how often it would happen if I ran colder, but I just don't do it because it makes me feel safer. This is exactly what I was talking about. As soon as you notice some kind of a little cold shut on the edge of a billet like this, you got to stop and grind it out. Because otherwise you can cause that to really spread through your billet, and you probably end up junking the knife if you don't grind it out early. That UPS truck across the street, I'm pretty sure it's got a new grinder for me. If you saw in my last video, I mentioned Taurus CNC. He sent me quench plates that I bought. I just really liked them, and I reached out to him and said, hey, I'm in the market for a new grinder. You want to work something out? He was all for it. So I put together a package and he sent it out. All right, we got all of the stuff unloaded. I'm gonna wait to unbox these and I'll show you that in another video. I'm gonna do a full, once I actually get to take the grinder out, put it together and make a couple knives with it. I'll try out all the accessories, and then I'll do a full review video of the Taurus CNC 2x72 grinder and all the accessories. And I gotta say, part of the reason I wanted to pre-profile this blade was that I wanted to put this grinder to use. I got it all put together in between the heats, and I got it set up horizontally for a little bit of blade profiling. Well, we have some unfortunate news. This knife's all done. I was just getting ready to anneal it in the kiln, relieve all the stress from forging, and I let it cool after taking it out of the forge before I was going to let it ramp up in the kiln, and we've got this massive catastrophic crack right down the center of the steel. Man, that sucks. And it's actually growing right now. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this thing, like, I can get my entire fingernail in there. I can't even imagine that there'd be any way to grind any of that out. Oh yeah, now it's going all the way. So this wasn't actually here when I first took it out. I cleaned up the profile and I could see solid steel all the way down, no cracks. And then now this is like growing as I watch it. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I've got one more billet and that's it of this Leopard Tank Damascus. So this isn't quite big enough and it's a little thicker than I'd like, but I'm gonna trace out this profile on this billet as close as I can get to it. And then I'm gonna just cut this to shape doing stock removal, because I don't wanna take the risk of forging this billet to shape and causing more delaminations like this. So I'll get to work on this. I can put my new grinder to work, and hopefully this works in the heat treat. All right, so I wanted to give you guys a close look at this because I was kind of fascinated that I was able to pull this billet apart like this. And one of the biggest things that stands out is where I hot stamped the steel. It looks like the grain is like huge. It's like big coarse sand compared to the rest of the grain. And I'm kind of wondering if that had anything to do with what ultimately caused this like catastrophic cracking down the center. If anybody, knife makers out there, know what's going on here with Damascus like this. I've never actually had this happen like this. I've had, you know, little cracks show up here and there, but I've never had such a uniform catastrophic failure in a billet before. I'd love to hear explanations if anybody knows what's going on here. Well, short little detour, but now we've got a knife ready to heat treat. It's not exactly the profile that I wanted. It's a little bit smaller, a little bit skinnier, but I think it turned out all right. All right, we got this guy ready to heat treat. Damaworks specifies heat treatment of 1562 Fahrenheit for a 5-minute soak. And it says to quench in oil, so I'm going to go with Parks AAA over Parks 50 since Parks 50 is more of a water quench. So we'll get this started. So I tempered this knife for two 2-hour cycles at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. That should give me a Rockwell hardness of around 59 to 60. The only data I have to go off of is what Damaworks publishes for this, and it's at 302 degrees Fahrenheit, gets you 63 Rockwell, which would be far too hard and brittle for like a field bushcraft knife. So I'm going to shoot for around 59 to 60 Rockwell. Hopefully that's what I got. After I get this decarb layer sanded off, I'll test it for hardness and see where we're at. Of course, I'm going to use this opportunity to show off my new toy. I got a surface grinder from Ameribraid paired up with my new 2x72 from Taurus CNC. Holy cow, this is going to be so cool. So I'm going to surface grind this knife just to get the flats flat and get through my decarb layer, and then I'll finish up the bevels by hand. Now that I got the blade and handle finished up, I'm going to make a leather sheath for it. You know, it's funny with knife making. I feel like knife making brings so many different skills together, and it's really hard to be exceptional at all of them. And I feel like sheath making is one of those things, especially leather sheaths, because as soon as you get kind of good at making knives, all of a sudden the same level of quality is expected in your sheaths as well. You know, somebody's not going to want to buy this knife and have it in like a pressed Kydex sheath. And so I certainly wouldn't call myself a great leather worker, or maybe even a good leather worker.
If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. In my next build, I'm gonna be making a massive 12-inch raindrop Damascus chef knife for a food truck. So make sure you come and check out that video. Thanks for watching. Hopefully I'll see you in the next build.